The Rus army was predominantly the poorly equipped, poorly trained militia raised from Novgorod's general citizenry. Furthermore,
and they're going up against heavy armored.
The Crusader army had something the Rus did not: heavy cavalry.
Yep.
Nevsky was direly aware of the fact that, in the hands of a capable commander, a single deadly charge from a few hundred mounted knights could rout his entire army in minutes.
How are you going to beat this back? How are you going to beat this back? Let's see. How Rus survived Mongols' rise of Novgorod.
In the mid-13th century, the land that had once been the mighty Kievan Rus was a smouldering husk, its cities and villages burnt down, its people slaughtered under a hail of Mongol arrows. However, one of them, the oldest Rus city, Novgorod the Great, was a world away from the devastation. Its walls still stood firm, the bells of the Nereditsa church still tolled, and its streets were abustle with lively commerce. In this video, we will explore how a free republic caught between Mongol hordes to the east and Catholic Crusaders to the west would scheme, bargain, and fight to survive. It's really weird that so many commentators...
This is going to be very interesting because I am deeply love Russian history and the origins of Russia. Anything about Russia I love, so I'm definitely gonna be
a few centuries to contextualize the city of Novgorod's rise to prominence as an autonomous power in
help
Manscaped help you.
I think I skipped.
We
Okay.
must rewind the clock a few centuries to contextualize the city of Novgorod's rise to prominence as an autonomous power in the pre-Mongol era. As you may recall from our previous episodes, Novgorod was the original capital of the Rus, founded by Rurik around 860.
Alright, so let's talk about that, shall we? So, it's funny because I see Ukrainian people, and I used to believe this myself because, like I said before, I used to be a Ukrainian supporter. I used to be a Ukrainian fanboy, honestly, really and truly. But then that changed over time as I started learning more and more, like, actual history of this region. Yeah, it's funny because I see Ukrainian people will argue that Kiev Rus was a Ukrainian state because in Kiev Rus, I call it the first Rus state. I think it's more accurate to call it like that, but in the first Rus state, it was sent to the wrong Kiev. And it's funny because they'll say like, oh, Kiev was founded before Moscow, which is true. But the thing about that is, like he said, Kiev wasn't the original capital of the first Rus state. So, if you take that logic, the capital was just moved to Kiev. Like, that was it. Like, both of them were still just Rus cities. One just so happened to be the capital, and that was that, right? Moscow would eventually, be obviously, come up during the Tatar yoke period. It would expand and become more developed, yeah. Which is also just a Rus city, but so I'm just saying this all because it's like, bro, it's just all Rus. It's all just Russia. I don't know, like, that's literally just what it is. So that doesn't really make any sense whenever I hear Ukrainian people say like, oh, Kiev Rus is Ukrainian. But I remember I was like arguing with this one Ukrainian, like, I don't know, like a month ago, 2 months ago, or something like that. And this dude unironically said that the Ruthenians from Kiev, I'm gonna just say Kiev because that sounds way better. The Ruthenians around Kiev were enslaving, he said, proto-Muscovites. bro. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, bro, you're the same people. That doesn't make any sense. Why? There were no proto Muscovites, bro. Like, even trying to think about what he's saying, it just hurts my head just trying to make sense of what he was talking about. And it's kind of hilarious how Ukrainians tend to like overlook that fact that it wasn't even Kiev that. I mean, I heard that Kiev was called quote unquote the mother of all Rus cities, but Ukrainians tend to act like Kiev was like the OG Rus, like the very first Rus city. I've seen them unironically try to argue this. Like, I'm like, okay, and they'll typically like mislead and say like, oh, look at when Kiev was founded, look at when Moscow was founded, which is on paper it's like, yeah, but then you have to realize that Novgorod was founded before any of them. So oh my gosh, dude, let's continue.
Even after Rurik's successor Oleg moved the capital to Kiev, Novgorod remained influential. The people of Novgorod had always been free-willed, so when the Kievan Rus began splintering in the early 12th century, the old northern capital emerged as one of the most dynamic independent powers. Novgorod ruled over a prosperous trading empire, with the city itself serving as a central hub of international commerce. This Novgorodian state had a unique system of government, as it was not a hereditary monarchy, but a republic since 1136, when the powerful merchant lords of Novgorod, backed by the general citizenry, overthrew Prince Vsevolod of Pskov. Legislative power in Novgorod was controlled by the Vircha, a form of public assembly consisting of nobles, clergy, merchants and commoners. Novgorod still had a prince, but he had to be elected by the council and could be fired if necessary.
Oh, wow. Wow. I didn't know that the Rus practiced this idea of a republic. Oh, I just learned something new. And this is why I mean, like I said, man, this is why I like learning about Russian history. Now, granted, this is just Novgorod, but there are other Rus kingdoms out there that were not. But still, the fact that this is in the 12th century. This is in the 12th century. I genuinely thought that Eastern Europe didn't really practice that whole idea of republicanism, let alone Russia, until very, 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 very recently in modern history. So this is actually very shocking. I did hear someone mention something about that, but I didn't really know much details. I was like, I didn't really pay much mind to that. But this is actually quite shocking to me. This is really, really, really shocking to me. Wow. A flourishing republic in Eastern Europe. And think about that for us. A flourishing republic in Eastern Europe before Western Europeans adopted the idea of republicanism. Isn't that wild? That's mad. Because this is in the 12th century. This was before England even became a constitutional monarchy, right? This was before King John had the Magna Carta written to kind of sort of limit his power. This is before the French Revolution. This is way before the French Revolution, right, man? Bloody hell. So, I mean, I know there are countries like Venice that were republics and whatnot, but all I'm saying is this is just kind of shocking to me. Like, this is really, really shocking.
That is not to say that the Novgorodian princes became meaningless figureheads. In fact, a particular prince would soon emerge as one of medieval Rus's greatest military leaders, and to many, the savior of the Rus culture and faith. In the year 1220, a boy known as Alexander was born to the Vsevolodovich dynasty, who ruled Peroslavl and later Vladimir. The young princeling likely spent his childhood years learning to fight and lead men. It was probably due to this pedigree that in 1236 his father dropped him off in Novgorod and the city council elected him to be their prince, beseeching the young noble to take charge of the city's military affairs. This was an incredibly tall order for a 16-year-old, as the city was in crisis. To the east, the unstoppable horde of Batu Khan was thundering across the Rus heartland, and it would only be a matter of time before the Mongols would come to Novgorod. In the west, the situation was just as volatile, as starting in the 12th century, various Latin Christian powers had made headways into northern Europe. The Vikings of Scandinavia abandoned their old gods by the mid-1100s and became more or less Christianized, which allowed them to expand under the pretext of Holy Crusade. The Kingdom of Sweden, in particular, began making ingresses into Finland, claiming it was converting the pagans of the region to Christianity, and by 1216, the Pope had recognized Swedish suzerainty over Finland. This expansion put Sweden on a collision course with Novgorod, who had economic and territorial interests in Karelia. The Catholic and Orthodox churches had finally begun to overlap in the north. Both sides desired land and power and considered the other to be heretics, so the potential for war was brewing. According to the Chronicle of Novgorod, in the summer of 1240, a Swedish army led by Bishop of Finland Thomas sailed up the Gulf of Finland in their longboats. They then proceeded into the Neva River with the aim of seizing control over Lake Ladoga, and from there, striking at the city of Novgorod itself. As the story goes, Prince Alexander wasted no time in rallying his Druzhina and confronting the Swedish host on the Neva, decisively routing the western invaders. It should be noted that the battle at the Neva is never described in Swedish sources, and this has led some scholars to question if the battle at the Neva even happened in the first place. However,
what the heck? There should be like archaeological. One way to determine if something is true or not, try to find the approximate area. Historians do this and dig underground. Just dig. And you should see like if it was truly a battle there, like some stuff would just get piled up over time. That's one thing to dispute if something is true or not. But let's see what he says about this.
most agree it was likely an impromptu border skirmish rather than a full-scale invasion.
Makes sense.
The young Prince Alexander had won his first military victory at the age of 19 and received his first sobriquet. Alexander's success had made him some enemies as well, particularly the boyars and merchants of Novgorod, who believed that his war jeopardized the delicate trade relations in the region. Soon the political situation deteriorated to the point where Nevsky and his soldiers left the city. This was bad timing indeed, for the Swedes were not the only Catholics who had ambitions to take Novgorod territory. It is now we move our focus south to the dense forests of the Baltic Rim. Much like Finland and Karelia, this region was one of the last holdouts of paganism in Europe. The ancestors of the modern Lithuanians, Latvians and Estonians had been fighting a losing war against German and Danish invaders, who sought to convert them to Latin Christianity by force. By 1228, much of the Baltic shore had been subdued by German Catholics, except for the Estonian coast, which became Danish.
You know, it's funny because I'll hear like Western Europeans like talk about my Europe superior, my Christianity, my Christianity. Like I'll hear that, right? And Christianity didn't even come from Europe, didn't even originate in Europe. Christianity came to Europe last. It was in Africa before Europe. Started in the Middle East. Like, it's funny because the pagan traditions of Europe were probably, no, not even probably, not even were probably, no, were the actual, like, like real European culture and beliefs before Christianity came. And Christianity kind of just colonized Europe. Like all the pagans and whatnot, yeah. Christianity just kind of just, like the Christian invaders kind of subdued and usurped the original. Like Europeans aren't even, most Europeans aren't even indigenous to Europe. Europeans are originating from somewhere roughly around the northern sub-Indian continent. So they came to Europe, got rid of the actual indigenous peoples there, and subdued them, became Christian, and then started to subdue actual European culture and religion. Now, I'm a Christian, okay? Like, other religions is, like, bad. But I'm just saying, like, these Europeans who try to, like, say Christianity is theirs and try to act like Christianity is this European thing. No, it's not. No, it's not. The actual European stuff is gone, bro. Gone. Like, Christianity subdued that. Oh, my goodness, dude.
This land became known as Terra Mariana, the land of the Virgin Mary. It was an unstable colonial frontier, divided into several bishoprics, directly sworn to the Pope in Rome, but still inhabited by Baltic peoples who continued to resist Catholic overlordship through guerrilla warfare. Throughout all this turmoil, a pair of knightly orders rose as the apex predators of the northeast. In Latvia and its environs, the Livonian Brothers of the Sword were dominant. At the same time, directly to their south, the Teutonic Order waged a bloody crusade against the pagans of Old Prussia, establishing control over the region. However, the balance of power was soon to shift. In 1236, with the backing of the papacy, the Brothers of the Sword launched an expedition across the Daugava River to subdue and convert the Lithuanians. However, Lithuanian tribes took advantage of the swampy forests of their homeland, ambushed the knights, and annihilated their invasion force. So crushing was this defeat to the Brothers of the Sword that their remaining members had to join the Teutonic Order. Now rebranded as the Livonian Order, they quickly rebuilt themselves into a powerful autonomous chapter of the Teutons, and this allowed them to wage a more effective war upon the indigenous pagans. By 1240, the Livonian Knights had established firm control on land as far east as Lake Peipus, and they now neighboured the Novgorod Republic. Once more, Catholic and Orthodox spheres of influence crashed together in northern Europe. The Council of Novgorod was initially divided on how to deal with the ever-encroaching Crusaders. Initially, Slavic merchants prospered as trading partners with the Germans and Scandinavians, and intermarriage between the Rus and newcomer nobility was not uncommon. These ties to the west had been why Nevsky was forced into exile after his victory at the Neva. After all, what merchant would allow a glory-seeking prince to chase off their best customers? However, relations between west and east had begun to sour from 1224, when the Livonian Knights took Tartu, a city that Novgorod considered to be within its political orbit. The Crusaders also ramped up their efforts to convince the Novgorod aristocracy to convert to Latin Christianity, which irritated the Slavs, for whom their orthodoxy was the heart of their society. As
That's the thing, bruh. Want to bring this up real quick. So this is kind of off topic, but it's kind of on topic. So I hear people like to say the Soviet Union is Russia. I talked about this on why Russia is poor reaction. Go check it out after that. But the Soviet Union was an atheist state, and the Soviet Union tried to rid of Orthodox Christianity actually. And that was like he said, the heart of Rus society, right? And a lot of people tend to like overlook that a lot, and I'm like, bro, if the Soviet Union is Russia, why would the Soviet Union like, because Orthodox Christianity is a core part of Russian culture. So I'm like, bro, you know the Soviet Union actually tried to destroy the Russian identity too and replace it with a more Soviet communist identity, right? So just bringing that up real quick, because he brought up how Orthodox Christianity was the core of Rus culture. So
diplomacy deteriorated, the German knights began to gaze greedily at the wealth of Novgorod, which, in their eyes, was a fair target as non-Catholics. Around the year 1240, Pope Gregory IX finally authorized a crusade against Novgorod, hoping that the Republic would be too preoccupied dealing with the Mongols to the east to defend. That same year, the Livonian Knights stormed the outpost of Koporye, conquering it with little resistance. They established a permanent garrison and began the construction of a stone castle, which made it evident to the people of Novgorod that the knights had come to conquer. Now in crisis mode, the Vichar of Novgorod turned back to the prince they had just exiled, begging him to return. Nevsky obliged, making haste for the northern capital. By the time he arrived, the Crusaders had taken Novgorod's sister city and breadbasket, Pskov. In the hands of an occupying force, it was a dagger pointed at the heart of the capital itself. Alexander knew that he had not a moment to waste, and in the autumn of 1241, he struck back, storming Koporye's brand new castle and capturing it swiftly. In the spring of 1242, he joined with the forces of his brother Andrei and thundered into Pskov, retaking the city with little effort, likely because the Teutonic Knights were preoccupied fighting the Mongols in Hungary at the time. Nevsky's swift military successes can likely be attributed to his Druzhina, the archetypal elite warrior retinue that had been a staple of Rus princes for centuries. Nevsky's force travelled light, taking towns and castles before their Crusader enemy had a chance to respond, a manner of warfare akin to his pagan ancestor Sviatoslav the Snow Leopard 3 centuries prior. Following these successes, Nevsky mustered up a citizen militia to supplement his Druzhina's limited numbers, and launched an offensive raid into Catholic Estonia, breaking his army off into contingents to raid and pillage the countryside. This was a mistake, for he had overextended his forces, and the Teutons and their Estonian allies managed to ambush and destroy one of the Rus raiding parties in an ambush on a river crossing southwest of Tartu. Nevsky decided to cut his losses and orchestrated a careful retreat. Meanwhile, the Crusaders had been hastily assembling an army for a second invasion into Rus lands. Led by Bishop Hermann of Dorpat, it consisted of a corps of knights, alongside an allied contingent of Danish soldiers and native Baltic auxiliaries. By spring, they had begun pursuing Nevsky's army northwards. In April of 1242, the opposing armies met upon the frozen surface of Lake Peipus. Novgorod forces numbered some 5,000, while the Crusader alliance totaled at around 2,600. The Catholics had been
so they outnumbered them. Okay, that's not horrible.
Outnumbered, but it was Nevsky who was outgunned. Apart from the Prince's Druzhina and a contingent of allied Turkic horse archers, the Rus army was predominantly the poorly equipped, poorly trained militia raised from Novgorod's general citizenry. Furthermore,
And they're going up against heavy armored. Oh.
More, the Crusader army had something the Rus did not: heavy cavalry.
Yep. Oh. Oh
Nevsky
no.
was direly aware of the fact that, in the hands of a capable commander, a single deadly charge from a few hundred mounted knights could rout his entire army in minutes.
Oh. How are you going to beat this back? How are you going to beat this back? Let's see. I really want to see if he's going to pull this off.
Against all the odds, the Novgorod militia held the line against the couched lances of the Black Cross, allowing Nevsky to successfully pull off a pincer move with his horse archer and Druzhina units, driving the knights and their allies off the field. The day had been seized by the East Slavs. This conflict, later immortalized as the Battle on the Ice, was a watershed moment in the relationship between medieval Rus and Catholic Europe. A permanent border between Novgorod and the Crusader states was established along Lake Peipus and the Narva River, and never again would the Teutons or their allies make serious ingress into Rus territories. For his victory, Alexander Nevsky earned immortality, known by all future generations of East Slavs as a saint who saved Orthodox Christianity. Now let us move back to the
Based
and address the Chinggisid-shaped elephant in the room.
Yeah, let's see the Mongols now.
Had been happening, the Mongols had been ravaging their way through the northeastern Rus principalities. Nevsky's solution for the Mongol problem was simple: surrender. While other Rus cities mounted futile resistance against Batu Khan, Nevsky instead sent envoys, preemptively capitulating before the Mongols even reached his city, and accepting the Chinggisid Khans as his lawful overlords. Because Novgorod had surrendered so quickly and willingly, it was spared the destruction that other influential Rus cities were subjected to.
Bro, he played the long game. I kind of know like Russian history, that what would become Russia anyways, it was a long game. Like, how the hell do I explain this? It was smart to capitulate to the Mongols because you could get time to actually build a force to get rid of them. Like, that was smart.
Why was Nevsky so willing to capitulate to the Mongols, but so insistent on fighting the Crusaders tooth and nail?
But that is a good question.
To those who showed proper obedience, the Mongols ruled with a light touch. They had no interest in influencing their subjects' religion, culture, or prevailing system of government, so long as they paid tribute without issue, and allowed the Mongol Khans to confirm their leaders. Contrast this to the Crusaders, who had every intention of forcefully eradicating Orthodox Christianity, and one can begin to see why the Novgorodians preferred a steppe warlord to a German bishop. Nevsky spent the rest of his life as a loyal vassal of the Great Khan, making many trips to the Mongol capitals of Sarai and Karakorum to pay his respects. The ruler of Novgorod used his submission to the Mongols as a key to political advancement. Indeed, the Mongol Khan bestowed upon him the title of Grand Prince of Kiev in 1246. Of course, in the aftermath of the Mongol conquests, Kiev was a shell of its former self, but the title itself...
Yeah, and that's the thing with Kiev. Like, bro, I personally believe that any idea of a independent, like independent Ukraine or any country around that area, that kind of, the moment Kiev got eradicated and destroyed and became a shell of itself, that all that went out the window. I personally believe that had Kiev not been destroyed, it probably could have been like its own, maybe its own distinct. I mean, there were still Rus people anyway. I don't really see how they could be different, really and truly. Yeah, I don't know. Like, national identity, and I guess they could have some type of different national identity. I don't even know. I don't even think so. I mean, they're just really and truly just identical to Russians. It's like I heard someone talked about how like Ukrainian culture, if it even has one, that isn't just Russian culture. Someone mentioned how Ukrainian culture just kind of just takes a lot from Turkic culture, and because that region had a lot of Turkic and Turk influence and whatnot, so a lot of Turkic culture is still there. And I heard someone talked about how Ukrainians were like, or like kind of like Turkic mixed with Ashkenazi Jews or whatever, and something else like that. But it's like still that's not. I mean, I mean, yeah, cultural exchanges happen, and even if Ukrainian culture did import a lot from Turkic culture, I guess you could say that. I mean, that's not really like uniquely. That's not Ukrainian though. That's just Turkic though. I don't know. Thinking about that hurts my head. I, Dude, I really just cannot really think of a way Ukrainian or anything like that is different from Russian. I no, no, I don't know. Like I said before, the moment Kiev was ransacked by the Mongols, that all hopes of a distinctly different state kingdom from what would become Moscow dashed. So, you know, it's kind of like how there's Germany and then there's Austria. Like they're both still Germans, but Austria is nationally speaking, like nationality wise, Austria is distinct. That you know we just differentiate the two. That could have been Ukraine, but like I said, the Mongols ruined that. So and instead the Mongols ruined that because Moscow would be the one to liberate that region of Ukraine. They would eventually reincorporate the Rus people down there back into, Russia, right? That one Rus state, of course. So yeah, that's why I said all hopes of a distinct Ukrainian identity different from Russia was just gone, like thrown out the window. So
still held significant symbolic power and gave him an edge over other Rus princes who now competed for the Khan's favour. Alexander would only continue to grow more and more influential under the Mongols' wing. In 1252, his brother Andrei reigned as the Prince of Vladimir. However, when Khan Möngke ascended as ruler of the Mongol Empire, Andrei refused to travel to Karakorum to have his princeship confirmed. As a result, the Golden Horde launched a punitive expedition into Vladimir, chasing Andrei out of his lands and forcing him into exile in Sweden. In his place, Nevsky was confirmed as the Mongol-appointed Prince of Vladimir as a reward for his continued loyalty. Nevsky paid off the confidence the Mongols showed him in dividends, defending their authority whenever the need arose. In 1259, when the citizenry of Novgorod revolted and refused to pay tribute to the Khans, Nevsky marched into the city with soldiers, forcing his own people to obey their Mongol masters by force of arms.
Wow, what the heck? That is mad. That is insane. Wow. He's forcing his own people. He's forcing his own Russian people to pay tribute to the Mongols. Wow. I mean, I know why he's doing it, but I mean, he has to do it. it's a smart thing to do. But damn, drawing the sword against your own fellow Russian comrades, that's absolutely wild to me. In support of Tatars, wow, that's...
Nevsky died in 1263, taken by illness while journeying home from one of his trips to pay homage to the Khan in Sarai. The Rus he left behind was a complex one. On one hand, invaders from the west were defeated, their religion saved in the process. On the other, it had been utterly ravaged by the Mongols, becoming subjects of a foreign empire. The legacies of St. Olga, Vladimir the Great and Yaroslav the Wise remained in the form of their faith, culture and identity that they had helped build. But as the various Rus princes slowly reconsolidated their lands and power under the watchful eye of Mongol overlordship, it became clear that the age of the Kievan Rus was long behind them, and a new era had begun in what would become Russia.
Yeah, thank you. Even though Kings and... This video was made like 5 years ago. Kings and generals, he's very pro-Ukrainian. He's very pro-Ukrainian now. If you watch his recent videos, he's very pro-Ukrainian. So I don't think he would have said something like this now. But this video is from 5 years ago. But thank you. Even Kings and generals himself at one point acknowledged that the Mongols destroyed any hopes of a distinct Ukraine that would be different, and Russia would come to succeed. Russia would kind of just take the place of the old Kievan Rus. So, and thus, because of that, they're all the same people. Like, simple. They're all the same people. Okay, like I see so many people, so many like history channels trying to distort history. Like, bro, it's just that simple, bro. Kiev Rus used to be at its peak, got destroyed, became obsolete. Russia was just a new thing in town. Russia was just a new thing in town, right? And the Rus people would all eventually come back, because Russia would obviously come to try and get back all the Rus people that were, forcefully taken by foreign powers, obviously, mostly by the Mongols and Poland, Lithuania, Commonwealth, of course, and be united under one Rus country, aka Russia. Like I said in my previous Russia reaction video, the name Russia in English is literally Land of Rus. Like, we pronounce it as Russia just to make pronunciation easier, but if we just take out the sh, it's literally just Rusi. Like Rusa. Literally. The just represents land off. So even now, today, okay, like we still call Russia Land of Rus. Like, and people are trying to pretend like it's not, and that annoys the living hell out of me. But if you like what I have to say in my videos, make sure to like and subscribe. What else do I have to say? If you're new to my channel, you have any suggestions for me? If you have any suggestions on Mother Russia, go comment down below. I would love to hear it. Я бы хотел это слушать. I don't know if I said that right. Did I say that right? I don't know. I just said that from like the top of my head. Usually some people, when they try to speak a different language on camera, they usually like read a script. I just say things from the top of my head. Я бы хотел это слушать. Yeah, I said that right. Yeah, I said that right. But like I said before, I am teaching myself how to speak Russian every single day. Like, I'm so dedicated. You have no idea how dedicated I am, but I'm so dedicated. I'm going to be probably dropping a video by the end of this year. By the end of this year, I don't know, I should be like B1. I'm like A2 right now. I'm A2 level right now, upper beginner. I would have been able to speak more, but I'll talk more about them in future videos. But anyways, like I said, if you have any videos on Mother Russia, definitely comment. I want to see more videos on Russia. I want to do more reactions on Russia. Unfortunately, YouTube was banned in Russia, so that is sad because I like to learn more about the Russian history. Because I like to learn more about Russia in general. Like I said, Russia is my favorite country. Said this all the time. I'm a very big pro-Russian / Russian fanboy. Thank you for watching. Go check out my other Russia reactions on my channel, and goodbye.